This past week, of Charlie Kirk made headlines across the country. But before the facts were even clear, the narratives were already starting to spread. That is the danger of fake news. It doesn't just mislead, it shapes how people think, how they act, and even justifies violence. Tonight's episode, we're talking fake news and real consequences. Stick around. Welcome to another episode of the Pretty Purposeful podcast. I'm your host, Angee Melange. And if you're new here, thank you for stopping by. If you've been a subscriber, thank you for being a part of our Purposeful family. So hopefully you guys had a chance to check out episode 1, The Power of a Purposeful Pivot. If you haven't, go ahead and check that out. Definitely kicked off the season on the right note. We're going to keep that theme going throughout the season, just really focusing on how we move forward, how we can pivot as these things unfold every day. I don't ask for much, but if you can do me a huge favor, I would greatly appreciate if you can go ahead and hit subscribe, go ahead and click that like button. And throughout tonight's episode, there will be opportunities for you to chime in. So if you're watching this on Wednesday at 7 p.m. and you're in the chat, I would love to hear your thoughts throughout the show. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Again, this is episode number 2. We are here at season 5. Oh my gosh. So I do just want to say, I hope that everybody out there, I hope that you all are well. I know there's a lot going on right now, so we really do have to take it one day at a time. So hopefully you are taking care of yourself, especially your mental health, and doing something for yourself special. I don't know if that makes sense. I mean, a lot of people are boycotting. I know I have definitely scaled back on my spending, definitely I've been very intentional about where I spend and more conscious of why I'm spending. And I think that's starting to spread. And I mean, please, by all means, keep that up. Not just because of what's going on in this country, right? And it is a form of protesting. But just think about how what we're going through right now has really waken up society. It is waking what everybody's woke. They don't want us to be woke, but we're woke now. It's going to be hard to get us back to sleep. You don't woke up the beast, okay? So we are paying attention, and no matter what your circumstances are, no matter what your financial situation is, your employment situation, your housing, just making those little choices every day can truly make a difference, especially with everything that's going on right now. So I just appreciate myself just having an opportunity to step back and reflect on how, just how we were living before this Trump presidency as compared to how we're living now. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I am often in a lot of prayer and meditation and reflecting and strategizing. Sometimes the strategy is just making sure that I'm honoring my, of course, honoring God, but making sure that I'm honoring my commitments to myself, just being more self-disciplined and just prioritizing that focus. Like, I work an untraditional work schedule. And so, because my work hours, my work schedule is not traditional, that would mean that my sleep isn't, and my play, work hard, play hard, right? Well, when you work non traditional hours, you have to be very um, meticulous with your time. You have to schedule things and plan in advance. I have been doing really well with just keeping a schedule, keeping a routine, and honoring that every day. So I work remotely. So that means that, as I'm preparing get ready for work, it's making sure that I'm cooking breakfast by a certain time. So I'm not like skipping a breakfast, even though breakfast for me is like during lunchtime. But it's just making sure that I'm nourishing myself, eating the right things, So definitely been more focused on what I'm eating and paying attention to when I'm having certain cravings, like for sweets or snacks. Just paying attention. And so I don't know about you all, but like I said, I just feel like this has been a time of like reflection, just making you appreciate the little things. So I know this month, us ladies we're going to boycott. There's one boycott that I'm participating in this month, and it is not shopping for any hair care products or going to any beauty supply stores. I live in an area where there's a lot of beauty supply stores. I mean, I live in like Little Korea of Atlanta. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of beauty supply stores pretty much everywhere. But so I got my choice, I got options, but it just really made me grateful when I was just getting prepared, to film this episode, doing my makeup and doing my hair, just looking around my closet and just being grateful for all that I do have. But to be able to go in my closet and go shopping for a wig is, that's clutch. In times like these, I'm grateful for the times that I took care of my wigs. And just, so I can make it through this period of, scaling back on those type of expenses. So I've been doing that. Let's see, what else have I been doing? Oh, I've been swapping out my wardrobe. So y'all, I'm from Pittsburgh, and in Pittsburgh, our weather is bipolar, but it is chilly. Okay, that's what if there's one way I could describe Pittsburgh. I'm not saying it's cold, like it's not like Michigan or Chicago cold, okay? But it's chilly. So in Pittsburgh, we wear a lot of sweaters, we wear a lot of hoodies, we wear layers. And so since I've been in Georgia, I still find myself getting to a certain part of the year. Like right now, we are approaching fall, and that's my favorite season. But I just find myself starting to like get all my summer stuff out the closet, out the drawers, and like putting them aside and preparing to swap them out. I keep a tote full of my out of season clothes, and you guys know the Ziploc bags, the big Ziploc bags that you can vacuum out the air. So I use those and like literally fill my storage bin up, and my daughter too. Like this has just been a routine, and I cannot break the habit, y'all. And I probably still have more than enough fall winter clothes than probably someone who is a native to Atlanta, just because that was the norm. And so I still do that. So I'm in that process right now. I'm starting to wear my fall colors. You guys can see I got the matching nails. And of course, my favorite color is like magenta. It's in the family of like the magentas, the fuchsia. Just I like wine too. Like this shirt is more of like a wine, but yeah. But I say all that to guys, like I am just loving this change of seasons. Every time I, approach a new season, or in this case, most seasons, we have a new season in every quarter. And right now we're approaching the fourth quarter. So this is like that time of the year where I start to reflect back and look at my goals and say, did I accomplish what I set out to do this year? What have my accomplishments been? And, what could I do before the end of this year? What is reasonable for me to do So just looking at those goals, looking at my journal, see what I was jotting down. And it feels good, y'all. It feels good when you could look back at like a journal and to be able to see that you actually were consistent or that you accomplished something that you said you would. That's a great feeling. So I just love to do that because it lets me know that I'm still on the right path. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm definitely trying to end 2025 on a positive note and, it to the best of my ability. Like with the podcast, just keeping this platform going and, continuing to be mission driven. At Pretty Purposeful Events, event planning meets social impact. We plan, we host, we build community. Grounded in service, guided by values. From youth empowerment events to community outreach, we create spaces that bring people together with purpose. Let's create something purposeful together. Pretty Purposeful Events is based in Atlanta, Georgia, proudly serving nonprofit and community-based organizations nationwide. Virtual services available. For more information, visit us online at prettypurposefulevents.com. In my intro, I mentioned that Charlie Kirk, it's all over the news. Um, if you're like me, I didn't really know who Charlie Kirk was. As much as I keep up with the media and what's going on in the political realm, I really didn't know who Charlie Kirk was, honestly. That's just like Laura Loomer. I hear her name, I hear the things that she stands for, and how she uses her platform and influences her followers. But I've never just like went to her page or checked out any of her content for myself. So when this happened, I mean, the first thing that came out was that like he was a extreme far right conservative MAGA person, and that he was speaking to a group of people on a college campus, and that was on September 10th, and he was fatally shot. The university actually was Utah Valley University, and they did arrest the suspect. His dad, if I'm not mistaken, his own dad turned him in to authorities. They said his dad is a pastor. They're Mormon. Yeah, there's still details that are coming out. And again, as I said in the intro, when this first came out, there were just so many different narratives that came out, which brought to my attention just how fast media rushes to name sides, frame narratives, and push ideas out to the public in the absence of having all the details. You guys know how it is in the media. People always want to be the first with the story. Being the first with a story and having facts is one thing, but being the first with a narrative and pushing that narrative without having all the details about what happened, well, that's just flat out propaganda. And it's quite frankly fake news. And y'all know that is Trump's phrase. If I'm not mistaken, we start hearing that phrase during his first presidency. And I didn't realize what was happening. At first it was just like, oh my gosh, here he goes with one of his isms, right? But I realized that that's very dangerous. You are someone who is a political figure. You are the president, because this was during his first presidency. In your position, you shouldn't be making statements like that. If you were joking, that'd be one thing, but you're pushing this narrative like you're not joking, like you're serious, like, you pointing out that certain medias are sharing fake news is helping, but actually it's not. It's just further pushing your narrative and your agenda. So in moments like these, the stories that we share are not just stories. They become part of what people believe, how they feel, who they trust, and how the next tragedy just might unfold. Fake news isn't a bystander in this story. Sometimes the fake news is the stage where information can be warped, especially on social media. Information spreads so fast these days, right? So And that's typically how people are getting their information. They're streaming, they're on TikTok, and so comes across their feed or their For You page. Same thing with Facebook and Instagram in real time, right? So it could be very dangerous to spread false news. So in today's episode, fake news, real consequences, who's pushing the narrative, we're going to unpack how narratives are shaped, who really controls them, and what happens when the truth gets compromised. And how do we, the public, especially people of color, we're constantly scrutinized in the media. How can we protect ourselves, our dignity, and our right to know what is really happening? So, as I mentioned earlier, the fake news phrase came out during Trump's first presidency. And if you've been watching, if you're part of our Purposeful family, then you know that the Pretty Purposeful podcast has a skit series called Pretty Undercover, where in season 4, my former co-host and I, we portrayed that we were Trump's DEI hires, and in that, we exaggerated the whole alternative facts, because that's another one of his phrases. That's another way that they, try to change the narrative, to their base. They call information that's factual, that paints them, not even paints, it just depicts them in a not so good light. They want to try to change that narrative for their base. So they were calling factual reports alternative facts. And that could be so confusing, especially if you're an intellectual, especially if you're someone who values research, and especially if you've been, watching a certain media network, forever. And then all of a sudden you have the president telling you that what they're telling you is fake news. It's just like, okay, so are you saying what you're listening to is what the real news, real factual? The first thought that comes to mind when I think about that is like safeguarding. Um, like there has to be safeguards in place. And those safeguards are the scholars, are the intellects, are the people who, are college graduates, the people, the research. We are the safeguards of factual data and information. We owe it to our children's children to keep the information factual and protect the integrity of that information. We'll get into that more in this episode. I hate to say it, but that's part of Trump's brand. Like, the alternative facts, the fake news, that's part of his persona, his brand. But it's sad because we're not on a television show. This is real life. His decisions, his words, they have power and they can influence people. So, at every opportunity we have to confront, real fake news, right? Um, we have to confront it and call it out, and not silently. Like, we have to call it out loud. Okay. Let's dive into this topic of fake news. So, fake news is not just information that is like false or inaccurate, it is often intentionally manipulated, biased, racist, half truths. And what's selected to be told, how it's framed, and sometimes things are omitted. That's how, like, you'll notice Caroline Levitt, who is Trump's press secretary. That's who I actually portray in the Pretty Undercover skit series. Because according in the skit, she got fired because the salary that she wanted was too much for Elon.
Elon Musk's newly formed Department of Government Efficiency, also known as DOGE, has been hard at work slashing, trimming, and, let's be honest, gutting positions that he deems financially inefficient. And apparently, Miss Levitt's salary was considered a bit much for this administration. So in the spirit of efficiency, Elon convinced President Trump to tell Caroline, "You're fired."
If you haven't checked out Pretty Undercover skit series, definitely check it out. It's hilarious. Just check it out. Caroline Levitt, I watch her. And when I'm watching her, I'm thinking this is a Christian woman that claims that she is a believer in Christ and that she follows Christian values. And then to watch her and to see even her demeanor and the way that she talks to press, the way that she talks to the press. I don't know if you guys remember, but like it was like maybe a couple months ago, there was a Black female reporter that was in the press room, and she asked the question, and Caroline was like, here's the clip right here.
On Saturday would be met with force. Can you clarify what kind of protest President Trump does support or find acceptable?
The president absolutely supports peaceful protests. He supports the First Amendment. He supports the right of Americans to make their voices heard. He does not support violence of any kind. He does not support assaulting law enforcement officers who are simply trying to do their job. It's very clear for the president what he supports and what he does not. Unfortunately for Democrats, that line has not been made clear, and they've allowed this unrest and this violence to continue, and the president has had to step in.
So if there were peaceful protests on Saturday for the military parade, President Trump would allow that?
Of course the president supports peaceful protests. What a stupid question.
So yeah, when you have a press secretary that responds in that manner, condescending, it's giving, control. It's giving control. To understand exactly what her role is and what she has had to accept within herself, within her soul and her spirit to be able to execute it. I mean, you've really got to do some big lying to yourself if you are truly a Christian and you are going to spew lies and you're going to suppress information from the public. And that is a responsibility, right? It's a great responsibility. And she's a woman too. It's like, you a woman? Come on now. Okay. You're still a woman, Caroline. Okay. But it just reminds me of even like the corporate structure. We see that happen a lot of times where you'll have these senior leaders who are white men, and then you'll have other senior leaders who are white women. And whether they truly believe in what's going on, sometimes they're just doing it because if they don't do it, they're going to get fired. Right. And it's sad because it's a situation where like, girl, this man been lying before you took that job. You have to be aligned with him in order to execute that role. I try to watch their media, and even though I'm Black, I'm mixed, I'm a person of color, I try to watch it through a lens of someone who never watched TV before. Like, I'm just pretending like, okay, if I never watched TV before, if I didn't know what was going on in America right now, and I was just watching, would I be convinced in the way that they share their news? And actually, I would. I was sitting there like, oh my gosh, they are master manipulators when it comes to, language, how they frame things, how they leave out important details, and this way you hear the phrase spin the narrative, because it's like, you'll take a factual scenario, and just by you omitting certain information that is critical for you to really fully understand the context and the seriousness of the situation, you omit things that would cause people to want additional information. You just try to give like this definitive, summary or a definitive perspective. And, okay, that's it. All right, we're done. Moving on. Nobody can challenge. Nobody can probe. Nobody can get, any elaboration. And they just want you to just accept it. And that's how, again, throughout this episode, we're going to be talking about different ways that you can point out when somebody is giving you fake news or when you're watching fake news. If you ever just notice that they don't expound on certain points, because again, their goal is not to inform and educate their base. They want their base to just accept the surface level, rhetoric that they spew, as long as they can spin it back to the libs being responsible for whatever it is that's not going right. And as long as they can take credit for all the things that they think are going right, or that they can frame as, them being responsible for. Yeah. So like their base will rarely challenge them because, one, a lot of them are uneducated.
I love the poorly educated. I love the poorly educated. I love the poorly educated.
Two, a lot of them don't watch any other news coverage to even compare and contrast.
Please stop watching Fox News. Fox News is not a news channel. It's an entertainment channel owned by Rupert Murdoch, who is the king of sleaze. You are listening to entertainers. Sean Hannity is not a journalist. Either is Jesse Waters and the goofball comedian on there, Greg, what's his name? Please educate yourself before Trump takes you down, takes all the money you have. You lose your house. You lose everything you have. Guys, wake up. Do you see what he's doing?
Lastly, they wouldn't even know, they don't critically think. So they wouldn't even know how to formulate the right questions to get the information that they need.
What was the cause of the Civil War?
What do you think the cause of the Civil War was?
I don't know.
What would you say is the cause of the Civil War?
The Civil War? What caused the Civil War? They mostly, I'm thinking of the first war when we became Americans.
And then we had a Civil War. What do you think caused our Civil War?
Sin, I suppose, you know. There was something evil. Mankind is hard on each other, man. Yeah.
They don't even know what questions to ask so that they can gain more perspective. As long as the narrative is against the Democrats, they're going to believe it. Until something happens that challenges that narrative, like Charlie Kirk's murder. I'm pretty sure, just as we've seen the FAFO phenomenon taking place, more people are leaving MAGA for different reasons. Some people are just slower than others to leave. And once they realize that this is a cult, because these people who have no loyalty to you are expecting you to overlook your own personal values. So you got to look yourself in the mirror every day and know that the way that you're behaving and engaging with people, or just your thought process, is being dictated by someone who's not loyal to you at all. I think once they're seeing that Trump is only loyal to Trump, when they see some of his closest people, you know, him firing them after they have done his dirty work, he still will get rid of them. I believe Epstein is one of them, you know, and that's allegedly. Let me put an allegedly ticker up here. I don't want to be putting no false narratives or no fake news out there. So I'm going to go ahead and put allegedly here, right? But this is what I feel. I feel like he tends to pull people in that he feels will be loyal to him and not push back. And then when he sees a sign of them struggling, because I'm pretty sure the people who have ended up leaving MAGA, the people who have left his administration voluntarily, they've had to, you know, look in the mirror and face that they're going to have to live the rest of their lives and deal with the consequences of pushing his narrative. His loyalists are the ones who are supposed to fill the gap, you know, when they're talking to their family members or when they're in the workplace. And at some point they got to realize, like, wait a minute, this man is really serious. You know what? For that, I'm going to take allegedly off of here because it's not no allegedly. This man is literally trying to take away people's rights. He is literally trying to take away people's freedoms. This is domestic terrorism. What's happening right now is, you know, is treasonous. And to have so many innocent people, especially the young people that are in the military, that they are trying to, you know, break generational curses. You know, this was their path to a successful career, a successful life. And now your commander in chief is telling you to do something that goes against your own best interest, your community's best interest. That's got to be tough, but ultimately that's what he's doing. And as soon as you show any sign of resistance, you're out of there. And then you may have a target on your back because they're going to come for you because they already know that you know some inside stuff. So I digress. But the point that I'm trying to make is the people who are complicit, we really do have to pay attention to who they are so that when this Trump presidency ends, hopefully sooner than later, we will know who to not be associated with. We will know what businesses, what companies these people are going to have to, they're going to have to live with their decisions. They're going to have to live with their choices. So, with that being said, how are you guys staying informed? Let us know in the comments below what you're watching. I know a lot of us follow people on TikTok. I know a lot of us get news from social media. But even on social media, you really have to be careful because people are just sharing things instantly without vetting what the source is. And that's the one thing that really gets me about social media. I'll talk about it another time, but the intellectual property is just, people don't respect your intellectual property these days. They will share your stuff and don't give you no credit. They will steal your stuff. And that's what's happening. Like this administration, that's what they do. They are not people of integrity. They do not uphold ethics at all. So it doesn't surprise me when I see people who engage, who live their life like that, being a Trump supporter, because he models that type of behavior. Okay, so moving on. But no, definitely let us know in the comments, how are you staying informed in this age of misinformation? If you watched episode 1, then you know that of course, I'm going to promote and highlight truthful, trustworthy news sources. I did share that I have been following Roland Martin, the Defiant Lawyers Network, and Midas Touch Network. And so you can find links to them if you go to our website and click on media. I now have their feed updated. So anytime they post a new video, it's there. My encouragement is to let everybody know about these sources of news that are trustworthy and that are out here. And if you have people who don't get online, but they have a phone and they can receive a text message, go ahead and just maybe share a video with them. Maybe share this video with them. And y'all, if y'all wondering what this is not alcohol. I know I'm sipping, but this is actually turmeric and ginger lemonade that I made homemade. I love this, y'all. I'm not a huge water drinker, but whenever I make a those dispenser containers. So I recently got a glass dispenser for the refrigerator, and I had a plastic one before, and it didn't last that long, so I just replaced it with a glass one, but I think it's like a gallon. So I just made a fresh batch, and so that's what I'm sipping on. At Pretty Purposeful Events, event planning meets social impact. We plan, we host, we build community. Grounded in service, guided by values. From youth empowerment events to community outreach, we create spaces that bring people together with purpose. Let's create something purposeful together. Pretty Purposeful Events is based in Atlanta, Georgia, proudly serving nonprofit and community-based organizations nationwide. Virtual services available. For more information, visit us online at prettypurposefulevents.com. So many great health benefits from turmeric ginger lemonade. So yeah, back to what I was saying. So as I mentioned earlier, I feel like those of us who are, educated, who value information, factual information, data, research, I feel like we are the ones who have to safeguard information at this point. And with that being said, I work in healthcare. So if you're like me and you work in healthcare or education, whenever lies spread, right? Fake news, fake information, policies suffer, procedures suffer, outcomes suffer. And actually, the trust of the public suffers because, especially within the Black community, we already have a mistrust of the healthcare system as it is, because historically we have been experimented on. We have not been heard whenever we've voiced, pain and issues. If I say I'm in pain, I'm in pain. When that happens, it just exacerbates the mistrust that already existed. I went to school to pursue a master's in healthcare because I wanted to be part of the change. I wanted to be able to address the disparities that impact the Black and Brown communities. And So yeah, when fake information, false narratives are being spread, especially when it comes to like the COVID vaccination and RFK, those of us who are in the healthcare system, especially those providers who took that oath and seriously have a passion for improving the health and lives of humanity, we've got work to do. We really have work to do. And I know in my heart, I believe that most providers are going to be on board with any type of resistance that's necessary to uphold the public's health, because it's like once that's like if you're ever, you guys know if you're on a plane or you're somewhere where somebody, has a heart attack or a seizure or something's wrong, everybody asks, is there a doctor? Is there a nurse? Like these people have to take an oath. And so they have a duty to act. And the same goes when it comes to policy. I know politics can get in the way of policy, but if policy is going to impact the public's health, then we are charged as healthcare professionals, we're charged with being the voice of the people. And so if you're someone who works in healthcare, my hat goes off to you. I do hope that you are making sure that in your space that information is being shared is factual and evidence-based. We already in the Black community don't be trusting. We don't trust the healthcare system, and people at this point don't trust institutions because historically, look, they have been designed to oppress Black people, Black and brown people, even Asian people, right? There are people who slip through the cracks here and there, but at the same time, a lot of those people end up having to compromise their personal values and their integrity to get to the top of the corporate ladder. And I feel like the more that we have had programs in place that help people report instances of, injustice or instances of discrimination and unfair treatment, it's like the people who have used that to get ahead, they no longer can use that. And so that's why we're seeing so much backlash around DEI and, any type of civil right protections. They don't feel like, they're like, wait a minute, those things, this is the result of those. If we didn't have those policies in place, these people would not have made it as far as they have. Well, we need to reverse those policies. But they also try to justify it by using statistics about maybe, I don't know, white unemployment or maybe, white college graduates, whatever the case. They might use real statistics, but they'll spin the narrative on it instead of saying, yeah, this number of, white people in this rural area did not attend college or didn't graduate past whatever, didn't go past whatever grade. And they will say, oh, it's because all of the funding was going over here because the Dems had the funding going over here. So your school districts, the schools weren't good. And, oh, Black people are taking all the jobs. They will spin that narrative instead of empowering their people, their communities. They never did want the white community to be empowered. Think about the white male patriarchy. You think about a nuclear family, a husband, wife, children. I'm sorry to say, I mean, there's so many examples of white families that, everything on the outside looks like they have everything together. And then you find out that behind closed doors, all hell breaks loose, including the children, maybe on drugs or, abusive to the parents or the parents abusive. It's just, these type of things can happen no matter what race. But if that is part of their culture and that white male dominance has been passed on and white women have not been empowered, then how can they empower their children to, actually communicate with people and resolve conflict through thinking for themselves? No, that's the reason why, again, I believe this is why we see so much white male violence, because they're not taught how to resolve conflict. It's this white male dominance. So you figure if they're trying to oppress every other race outside of them, then those who have that mind within the white community that they're superior, well, then they get out into real society and they see that you've been told you're superior, but do your actions reflect that? You witness, Black and brown people doing some amazing things, and then they want to spin the narrative and try to say, oh, yeah, it's because DEI let them go to school and you couldn't go. But it's like, no, if it were not for those programs, we would not even have been accepted. You would have been able to turn us away for whatever reason. You could make something up, and they still do, and they still have, and they still will. All of the people right now, especially, our white counterparts that are speaking out and speaking up and using their white privilege for the greater good, like, we need to remember these people, because going forward, just in business, just in community building, whatever that looks like, if it's the business that we're building or community or whatever it is, we do need to have them to be a part of the rebuilding of this democracy. And that what that might look like is some of those, some of our white allies are in positions of leadership, whether it be their own company or, they might be a senior executive at an existing company, maybe one that actually is not really aligned with Trump's or far right conservative values. We need to be aware of who they are, because we need leaders like that if they're going to be the majority white leaders in the future. If that's the direction they're trying to head, we're going to need our allies to be in those positions, to be able to even the playing field, despite what those policies are saying, or what, they're not going to, I don't think they're that bold that they're just going to put a policy in writing and say, hey, but you never know. At this point, they telling people you can arrest somebody if they look Hispanic. You could arrest someone if they have an accent. Y'all see me, right? Y'all can tell I'm mixed, part Hispanic, part Black. But at the end of the day, I'm Black. So when you say, okay, you look Hispanic, yeah, but when I open my mouth and you hear me talk, you're going to know that you're dealing with a sister. But here's the thing, they don't care. I went to Haiti in 2015 on a mission trip and got held up at customs. And I had been out of the country before, and that never happened to me. And I had driver's license, I had passport, I had all my documentation. Like, I'm a US citizen and I'm being detained at customs. That shit was scary, y'all. That was scary. Cause like, I don't even speak Spanish. I don't even speak Spanish. But that was like, that experience that's one of the experiences I've had that made me realize that my last name is like a target on me. It's so many layers, y'all. And I know I'm not the only person out there that has a story when it comes to being discriminated against, whether you're Black or Hispanic or Asian. I know I'm not the only person that has a story. I don't tend to share those experiences that often, because I feel like, especially nowadays, it happens so regularly. Oh my gosh, y'all. But this season, I think this might be the season that I do share an experience that I had with the North Braddock Police in North Braddock, Pennsylvania. It was a time that I was wrongfully arrested, and yeah, we're going to talk about it this season. There's actually going to be an episode this season called Surviving the Police in Trump's America. So if you or someone has a story about, injustice or, police brutality or being detained unlawfully, and you want to share that, like, definitely pass that along. Let people know if they have a story to share. We want to hear from them. All right. Let me put my glasses on so I can see y'all. Okay. All right. So it says recent actions and statements from Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. have raised concerns among some public health experts about the future of healthcare research and data integrity. They have reduced research funding. What that does, you guys, is it disrupts studies. So these are studies that have been, like, might be new, or studies that may have happened years ago. I mean, come on now. You're in the middle of a study that requires maybe a certain length of time before you can, maybe get another study, a group, you know, people to actually participate. Maybe this is a 5-year study that requires you to, have all the subjects, the patients come back in for some additional testing or some trial, whatever. Research and especially studies, they require time to be able to collect data. So it says here, in early 2025, Kennedy announced cuts that halted data collection on crucial public health issues, such as cancer in firefighters and HIV rates. This drew criticism from experts who warned it could leave the nation flying blind to emerging health threats. Population control. But you ain't hear that from me. Okay. Impact on innovation. So it says Kennedy also canceled nearly $500 million in mRNA vaccine. In mRNA vaccine research contracts. Public health experts warn this could hinder the U.S.'s ability to respond to future public health emergencies. Pay attention, y'all. The redirection of the funds. It says Kennedy has advocated for redirecting funding from established research to what he describes as preventative and holistic approaches, a shift that has been viewed with alarm by some in the public health community. Y'all already know this ties to capitalism, right? They're trying to defund so that they can come in and dominate the market. They're trying to come in, basically, like I said, capitalism, they don't care about the research and data. They just want to be able to put product out there and they want consumers to consume. That's all they want to do. They want to be able to, again, control the narrative, because if you take things away from people and people don't have any alternatives, if the alternative is something over the counter, they're going to go for that, because what other option do they have, right? We already see this when you see the market flooded with things like all these different sleep aids and, I don't know, just people promoting different like vitamins and different drinks and things that boost your mood. Don't get me wrong, they may actually have some nutritional value. A lot of that stuff has not been approved by the FDA. You don't know where those ingredients came from. You don't even know if what they say in the ingredients is actually what's in the product. So it's getting scary out here, y'all. So it says here, diminished data oversight and credibility. So dismissal of advisory panels. Kennedy fired all members of the advisory committee for immunization practice, a panel that provided expert advice on vaccines. He replaced them. He replaced them with new advisors, including individuals with a history of vaccine skepticism. This is question research standards. Kennedy has reportedly promoted the use of gold standard science while simultaneously promoting a report, the MAHA report, that misrepresents, that was found to cite non-existent or misrepresented studies. And y'all, for those of y'all that don't know, the MAHA, that's Make America Healthy Again initiative, okay? It says reduce transparency. So despite promising radical transparency, the agency has failed to provide all data as promised. Sound familiar? The Epstein files? Hello? We ain't forget. This has led to concerns about the government's openness and commitment to evidence-based policy. Y'all, let me just pause for a second, okay? You don't even have to be a doctor to know that in order for you to advance medicine, in order for you to improve outcomes, you are going to have to research. You are going to have to, over a period of time, you're going to have to study humans, study what's happening. There's all kind of different external factors that change things every day. So a researcher or a scientist or somebody that could be trying to put together the next cancer cure, which I think exists, honestly. I just think that, I'll keep that opinion to myself. But, because things are constantly changing and evolving, you need to study over a period of time to be able to see how do these external factors that happen impact the patient, or how does it impact the outcome of the drug. That is an example of evidence-based research. So the medicines that we have, the diagnosis that we get, it is based off of some evidence. That's the same as like in the legal system. When you go to court and your attorney wants to present a defense for you, they have to be able to cite a case where that defense worked, and that defense will actually show why it worked, why it produced evidence that can show why this argument is valid. And somebody else's case may have found that. And so when you cite it, it's like, okay, that's the rule of law. That is how laws are shaped. So if they're taking away and devaluing and defunding research, then bye-bye policy that's based on something that actually can, be tested. That's how you know the United States is currently in an authoritarian dictatorship. We don't have a say. We just have to take whatever they throw at us. And then anything that we know to be true, we're supposed to just unlearn, unforget, devalue it just because they defund it. No. What we have to do, those of us who value evidence-based research, who care about the integrity of health, of medicine, we have to start protecting that information. We have to safeguard it, and we have to build upon it, even if that means we have to fund ourselves. So I'm talking about right now, coalition building. I'm going to keep on talking about coalition building. If that's not something you ever thought about, you don't know what that looks like. Coalitions can manifest in just about every space, every industry. You really have to start connecting with like-minded people who are just as mission-driven, as purposeful and intentional as you. And if that's not you, if you're someone out there and you're not really on that side of this situation, maybe you're not someone who went to school. Maybe you've had perceptions about people who went to school. Maybe you looked at them like, oh, they don't understand my struggle. They're educated. They got a good job. They got degrees. They don't understand my struggle. No, many of us came from the ghetto. Okay. Many of us came from the projects, single family home, living on welfare, on food stamps, caught up in the social service, juvenile justice, welfare, like prison, don't assume just because someone is educated or someone has multiple degrees that they think they're better than you or that they are better than you. Because many of us who have gone back to school and continued our education, we have had to continue our education because despite the first degree, it never changed our opportunities. And that's with DEI and affirmative action. The second degree didn't improve our opportunities, did not help us advance. The third degree, same thing. So a lot of us continue to go to school to continue to say, look, if you tell me I don't have enough education, if you tell me I'm not qualified for this position, I'm going to go and I'm going to learn something that you need to know and you don't know. So now you need me. So that's how a lot of us that have multiple degrees, we ended up that way because as we were trying to grow in our career and get that experience and get that promotion based on our development. A lot of corporations, I will say, they do have, in-house, in-kind leadership development courses. I think that is necessary and to ensure that, especially when you have a large corporation, that your people, your talent is actually being developed. So when you do need to fill a position, you already know, you've got people that have your values instilled in them and they have the credentials. But I say all that to say, even despite the trainings and despite the degrees, sometimes people just continuously get looked over. Sometimes you're too qualified. If there's not enough checks and balances in place, you never know who's making what decision and why. Because I know one thing, when a resume comes across my desk and if I'm having to interview someone, that's only telling me one side of the story, right? I could see that they got an education. I could see, a resume, it shows you something about that person's level of commitment and dedication to becoming successful, because they didn't go to school to acquire all that education to just sit on it. We do know people, I could say my own personal experience, I'm not going to call nobody out, but I'm just going to say people that have degrees that they never really were able to do anything with. And for years, I'll be honest, I was judging. You know what? I owe this person an apology. They at the age now where it may not even matter. But sometimes people need validation. And so that person is my mom. That person is my mom. And I'm saying that because that was an accomplishment that my mom was very proud of. She is, to this day, she's still proud of acquiring 2 college degrees. And as she should be proud. If it were not for my mother being a college student when I was growing up and me having that real life example of what it looked like, she was a single mom. And of course, we had a lot of time on our hands to get into trouble. She was the blueprint. I don't think if my mom didn't go to college, I don't know that I would have felt like I could do it. But so again, I think I may have said this before on previous episodes. I'm going to definitely give my mom her flowers while she's here, because that was a big accomplishment. And so, Mom, if you're watching this, I'm proud of you. I'm really proud of you. And while you've never shared what your experience has been trying to advance your career opportunities, I understand now. I may not exactly know your exact experience. What you did facilitated for the next generation, myself, your granddaughter, your grandkids, to pursue more. And so I thank you. And now I'm going to take a break because I'm about to crack. At Pretty Purposeful Events, event planning meets social impact. We plan, we host, we build community. Grounded in service, guided by values. From youth empowerment events to community outreach, we create spaces that bring people together with purpose. Let's create something purposeful together. Pretty Purposeful Events is based in Atlanta, Georgia, proudly serving nonprofit and community-based organizations nationwide. Virtual services available. For more information, visit us online at prettypurposefulevents.com. So, in speaking about college, it makes me think about the HBCUs that were recently targeted after the news broke about Charlie Kirk's and how they were trying, the media, the right, conservative media was trying to paint the narrative and try to push the narrative that it was a Black person who had taken his life. And as a result of that, the far extreme right were talking about going to war and retaliating. And, even right now, there's still those threats. They're calling these HBCUs and threatening them.
The Florida Baptist Convention say hate must stop when it comes to HBCUs being a target. Florida Memorial University, right behind me, is the only historic Black university in South Florida. The president telling me they are taking safety precautions when it comes to protecting everyone on campus. A dozen Black pastors from the Florida General Baptist Convention came together outside the historic 93rd Street Community Baptist Church to call on people to come together and find a solution to the political tension in the country.
We know that hatred and murdering is going on in our country, and it's not of God. Not of God. It is not of God, and it was not of God for Mr. Kirk to be assassinated the way he was assassinated. Amen.
Since Charlie Kirk's murder, HBCUs across the country have received threats. On September 11th, terroristic threats forced Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona and at least 4 other schools into lockdown. And a group wearing MAGA hats and carrying anti-DEI signs were removed from the Tennessee State University campus Tuesday.
Why are our HBCUs being the target of violence?
This is a time to really be aware of your surroundings. If you do not have to be in any type of large gathering, I mean, the protests are still going to happen. I would say if you're in an area where there is a protest, just stay alert, be aware. If you got to wear a vest to a protest, wear a vest. If you got to wear a damn helmet, okay, listen, if you're going to be out there, just be safe. That's all I'm trying to say, because things are definitely shifting fast. And there's some people out there that have a lot of armory, a lot of weapons that they might use on animals. They might use on targets at the range. But there's some of them out there that fantasize a black or brown person. So just please, everybody, be safe. That's all I'm going to say. This type of political violence, happening in 2025 is radical. It is so much radicalization online that, someone like Charlie Kirk, who had a large platform, it shows you just how dangerous this type of rhetoric can be. Those of you out there who have family and friends and children that go to HBCUs, how are you all feeling? I don't personally have anybody that I know that's attending or on campus at a HBCU, but there's several here in Atlanta. Let us know in the comments if you have any family, if you yourself attend an HBCU, let us know, how you're feeling. Let us know your thoughts. Of course, our thoughts and prayers are with all of you, and that the staff is making sure that you all are safe and informed. Right-wing media has been attacking HBCUs forever, calling them extremists, and simply because we want to instill certain values in our children and teach them their culture, right? So after this type of what they call political violence, I mean, I wouldn't say he's not a politician. Charlie Kirk was not a politician. He was a far right-wing conservative social media influencer. I believe he had his own podcast, but he had a huge platform and he was doing these public speaking events. But after someone that is that prominent in that space where there's so much hate and evil, they immediately want to point the finger and blame it on the Black community. So right now, our HBCU campuses are possibly more vulnerable to harassment. There could potentially be copycat, incidents. And again, these are real consequences that we as a community have to be, we have to stay vigilant. Right-wing media, this isn't new for them, pointing the finger, blaming the Black community, blaming Black institutions anytime there's violence without even getting the facts first. We see that narrative painted so much. We also see how whenever there is a crime that involves a Black person, they will dig up so much dirt to paint them as this horrible monster. And then as soon as somebody that's white do it, they're like, oh, he just needs some help. Like, I think they're saying now that the shooter was a Mormon and he lost his faith. And these are the headlines that are out there now. He lost his faith. And it's just like, but just yesterday, y'all was talking about starting a war. And now they're disappointed when they find out that he's one of their own, that he actually was a Trump supporter, and they're just like, how can we blame Blacks? How can we blame this on the Black people? And it's like, we busy. We over here trying to learn how to do Chris Brown dance. We trying to learn how to do boots on the ground and trying to learn new line dances. I will say, for the most part, as a collective, we are on one accord in minding our business, because we tried to tell them. We actually took action. We used, those of us who voted for Kamala, used our vote to save democracy. We got out there. We campaigned. We called people. We encouraged people. We used our platforms to get people to get out and vote. And we did our part. Now, all this stuff that's going on right now, we have to protect ourselves. We have to protect our families, and we have to protect our communities. So that's what we're doing. We already know we're the easy target. They always want to make us the scapegoat. I mean, that's typical bully behavior. You know what I'm saying? The person who's minding their business, who ain't doing all the foul mess. Why does this sound like deja vu? When we see governors like Governor Gavin Newsom speaking up, and we see different mayors speaking up and protecting their state and their constituents. I mean, that is how radical you have to be able to protect your community. And especially when you're up against people who are just trying to bully their way, no matter what it takes, even if it's their own. Okay. We have to be mindful of that and just remember, why do bullies bully? Why, when they come with this rhetoric, this violent rhetoric, and want to place blame when people are clearly minding their business, it says a lot about them. These white supremacists, they are so obsessed with us. They're always watching. They're always listening. And they're always looking for a way to insert themselves in our lives when we are minding our business. That is how bullies are. Bullies just need a hug, like all the bullies out there. You just need a hug. You just need a little pat on the back, a little reassurance. You're doing good. You don't got to tear other people down. You don't got to tear people down to live, to thrive. Did you know that person you're bullying might actually be able to teach you something? You might actually be able to learn something from that person you over there terrorizing for no reason. Don't block your blessings. This reminds me of an interaction I had. It was during election season. It was around the football. It was actually homecoming for my daughter's school. And there were these two elder white men in the parking lot, and they didn't know how to pay for parking because you had to have the app. So they see me there, and we tailgate, and so we're not going anywhere. We're there. They just want to be able to, put their information in the app so they don't get a ticket. And I'm the only person that they can see that, is right there. I was parked, like where I was parked was so cool. It was right by this tree. We was posted up. And they had a nerve to ask me, "Excuse me, do you know how to do this?" Me trying to be a good Samaritan, I'm looking at my daughter. I'm like thinking, I told her too, I know they voting for Trump, but you know what? I'm going to help them. So I walked over there, took his phone, went to the app store, found the app, downloaded it. He actually already had his information in Apple Pay. So I told him, how to pay, put his information in. And I was like, I know who you probably voting for in the next couple weeks. But when you at the poll, just remember, if your candidate wins, he does not promote this type of engagement. So just know that this might be one of the last times that you get help from someone that looks like me. And so again, to all of my white people out there, not the white people who are on our side, the allies, right? Not our fellow humans, but our adversaries, the ones who don't want to treat us like we're human. To all of you, just keep that in mind the next time you're out in public and you are so used to Black and brown people coming to you and being so, having this certitude. It's not going to be happening. And you just never know what situation you might be in. Something as simple as a parking ticket. Those courtesies aren't going to be extended so much because y'all are the op right now. And so my thing is, we don't have to be out in your face. We're not going to be all up in your face. Matter of fact, let me just say, I quit a band last year after the election because I did not want to be in spaces where I wasn't welcome. I don't care if I'm singing or not. I don't care if you like my voice or you like the band. My energy is going to trigger you. The energy that I bring when I walk into that space, it's going to be an energy of Black pride. Even if they're looking at me trying to figure out what I'm mixed with, you're going to know you're in the presence of a Black woman. So I wanted to protect myself and I quit my band. That was after 18 years of wanting to be back in a band, and I'm sitting here forming one from scratch. That's what you call standing on business. That's what you call being authentic. I meant what I said what I meant, and I acted accordingly. With all of this that's going on, this is even more reason for us to be more conscious of our mental health. A lot of people, I've been seeing people crashing out left and right online, whether it be because of their living situation, healthcare benefits being taken away from them, SNAP benefits. Like, people are really living in fear right now. Fear of losing their job, fear of being evicted. So even just wondering, like, oh my gosh, I don't even want to look at my phone because I don't know what headline I'm going to see next. Like when that Charlie Kirk situation happened, I had not even been online. I didn't get that in real time. By the time I got the news about Charlie Kirk's death, it had already been like 6 hours. All I'm trying to say is that keeping up with the news nowadays, if you were someone who didn't like the news before, if you were someone who didn't like to watch the news because it's depressing, now keeping up with the news and trustworthy news, it's not about being nosy. It's not about, I mean, I don't think the news was ever really, especially the local news. I don't think the intention of the news was ever for you to be nosy. It's just so that you could be aware. If there's a on your street, wouldn't you want to know, right? If there's road closures in your community, wouldn't you want to know before you went to work, right? So, and especially with weather, don't you want to know about the weather? So, but when you're talking about politics, and you talking about people who have bought elections, stole elections. I'm talking not just federal, I'm talking local. This stuff been going on for years. This stuff been going on before Black and brown people were even considered. Keeping up with the news nowadays, it could be a matter of life and death. All right, Purposeful family. I could continue talking about this subject, and I will. But this episode is about to end. We have covered a lot. We have talked about the importance of safeguarding information, research, data. We've talked about the importance of coalition building, making sure that you're connecting with people who are like-minded, people who are trustworthy. Before we get out of here, I want to ask you all a question. If the media and the internet went dark tomorrow, who would you turn to for information? So I want you to think about that. Because again, we are living in some very unprecedented times. Things are happening quicker than you could pick up your phone. And I mean, I'm telling y'all, I went that day, I didn't find out about Charlie Kirk passing until the evening. Okay. I was late. Who would you think of first to call to just ask what's going on? We really have to start thinking about things that literal. Something so simple as who would you call to find out news or information? Who's that person in your family that you know they got emergency radio? Who's that person in your family that you know has been keeping up with the news and making sure that the news is factual and legitimate? It could be a neighbor, but start thinking about that. And I'm going to need you to get in contact with them, connect, send them a text and say, hey, I know it's been a while, but the times that we're living in, I just want to make sure that I remain connected to my real ones. I'm going to leave y'all with that. Let me know in the comments below. It is definitely critical in this time that we're living that we have our tribe, but you got to have that go-to person or people or group text, group chat that you can go to ensure everybody is connected and communicating. So I'm going to leave y'all on that note. But before we leave, I just want to go over a few things. How can you spot fake news and propaganda? We've got to start thinking before we share information. If somebody sends it to you, make sure that you vet it, make sure that the source is reputable, credible, who owns it, who funds it, y'all. Any information that's being shared online, make sure you backtrack, you research and find out who is funding it, okay? Because it could just be propaganda. Look at other sources to see what other sources or outlets are saying about whatever it is that, what information was shared. Also, the source that is sharing the information. Think about what is their motive? Who benefits if people believe what they're sharing? Who are the beneficiaries of this information? If we believe what the narrative that they're pushing, who benefits? Me with this podcast, I have to be reflective before I share information. So we want to make sure that before you share any information, whether it be a text or content, reposting, ask yourself, Am I contributing to a rumor or am I providing clarity? And sometimes you may not even be sharing someone else's content. You could be creating the content yourself, but if you're not presenting it in a way that is factual and clear, someone can take that, misinterpret it. And y'all know the telephone game. Y'all know how it goes, right? 3 people in and the message is all. Some people do it on purpose, and that's the fun of the game, right? Because you never know who switched it up. You never know who started the rumor or who changed the narrative. You just never know, right? So I want you to keep that in mind. Just because, something happens and that information gets shared, and then as it gets shared, things change. And if you've ever played that game, if you've ever been the person to, you thought you were switching the narrative, and then later you find out it was already wrong when it got to you. That should tell you something, right? Of course, a game like the telephone game it's for fun. It's for demonstrative purposes, right? To share how easily when you gossip or spread rumors, how it can take on a life of its own and become something way more than you ever anticipated just by switching or leaving details out, right? That's how this fake news thing can happen the same way. But that's why when you have integrity, people with integrity are so needed these days. We are going to be the ones to, I can't say save democracy because I think it's gone, but whatever remnants of civility that we still have, those of us that have integrity, that believe in evidence-based research, that believe in telling the truth, that value those things, we're going to have to uphold those standards. We're going to have to uphold policy and the law. We just have to continue to be the change. I know that sounds so cliche, but it is true. And that's why I'm using this podcast to share truthful information. That's why I'm choosing to use my platform to do just that. Yeah, we have a little bit of fun here and there. The brand itself is really about being purposeful. And if you know me personally, you know I do like to have fun. I can be very silly. I'm very down to earth. And, I know when I come on here and I'm professional mode, but, it's a time and a place. But now is not the time. I'm not saying don't enjoy yourself, don't, treat yourself, or don't have any activities or do anything. I'm just saying, y'all, we have to really hunker down. We really have to hunker down and continue to support Black businesses, continue to be empathetic towards one another. All that backbiting, all that backstabbing, messiness, get a grip. Get a grip. Because the person or people that you're trying to harm, it's going to outlive whatever benefit you think that you're going to get by tearing down another person in your community. Now's not the time. So I really challenge anybody out there who's operating like that, for whatever reason. You got to look yourself in the mirror and know that during this time, in this unprecedented time where people are homeless, people are losing jobs, people are losing healthcare benefits, and they have pre-existing conditions, has surgeries lined up, scheduled. This is not the season for us to be tearing one another down. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. If you're not going to play nice, then don't engage with people. Just let people be. The same way that we want Trump and his people to let Black people just be, let me just say, that's the scary thing. Not just on a federal level, right? With this administration, the decisions that they're making to lie to the people, they have real consequences. People do suffer. Innocent people get hurt. And so my call to action to anybody watching this, if you are engaged in any type of shady, messy drama that is a effort to sabotage someone or to harm someone or to take something from someone while we are currently under attack as a collective, shame on you. Shame on you. I really hope that you rethink what you're doing. And so, Purposeful Family, before we get out of here, I just want to leave you all again. As always, I like to leave you guys with some calls to action, some practical steps that you can take to get through this time. So the first thing I would say is build your own media circle. So trusted news outlets that report for our community, such as Roland Martin and the Defiant Lawyers Network, and not just the national headlines. If you have a local Black media outlet, newspaper, definitely connect with them. Share factual stories and resources with your family and friends who might usually rely on biased sources. So, to all my white counterparts out there, to really anybody, I don't want to single out white people, but if you have members of family, if you have family members who are leaning right or MAGA, considering leaving MAGA, whatever the case, just make sure that you are sharing factual stories with them so that they can compare and contrast, and hopefully it'll click and they'll be able to see how people are trying to shape the narrative and basically play in their face. Let's just be real. This whole administration is all about playing in people's face. Let's not get it twisted, okay? So it is up to us to make sure that we don't allow them to, they could play in our face, but it's not going to yield the results that they are hoping for. Have a communication plan in place, okay? Who are your people that you can call upon, lean on to get real news, to get factual information? Let's say you come across something and you're not sure if it's true or not. Let's just say, it could create just major pandemonium. False narratives can create panic. And so what do you do if someone reaches out to you and they ask you, is this true or not? It impacts our decisions, right? Our daily decisions. So it is so important nowadays that you make sure that you have a communication plan in place. Who is your go-to person if you can't access the internet? Who could you call if you can't access a phone? Who is your trusted resource within walking distance? And please, 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 when you call out the lies, be loud as you possibly can. I'm talking about make sure you hashtag in, make sure you tagging your people, make sure you texting your people. Anything that you see online that you know is a false narrative, call it out. Maybe share it with someone who has a larger platform than you. Like, we're going to have to model what that looks like. So that's what I've been doing with this podcast. I will continue to do that. I hope that you were able to get something from this episode. If you did, please like, share, comment below. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you have any topics that you want me to talk about in the future. If you would like to be a guest, please visit prettypurposefulpodcast.com and click on Be a Guest and fill out that registration form, and we'll be in touch. Don't be scared. I know I don't have a super large following right now, but I would say if you've ever wanted to be on a podcast, this would be a great opportunity to get you some experience. We have some really great topics coming up this season, and some of them are if you haven't already, definitely follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We are Pretty Purposeful Podcast on Instagram, and we are Pretty Purposeful P on TikTok. So please make sure you follow us on social. I keep saying us, y'all, because I'm used to having a co-host. So I'm probably going to be saying us for a while until I get used to it just being me. But we are a tribe. We are a purposeful family. We are a collective here at the Pretty Purposeful Podcast. So I might be able to still use that us word. Yeah. And as always, you guys remember, it's okay to be pretty, but even better to be pretty purposeful. Bye.